Hello everyone and welcome to this session on Blogger. Thanks so much for choosing it as part of the program. I hope you've had a great conference so far. So my name's Samantha Badanica and I'm from Using Technology Better. So we work with schools and universities across Australia, New Zealand and North America, providing professional development. So today we are going to talk all about Blogger. So our agenda for the session is we're going to start with just a really quick blogs and websites. What's the difference? You know, one of the key questions I get is, do I want a blog or do I want a website? Quick chat about blogs and some ideas for using them in education. And then we're going to look through the 4 key steps you need to know to becoming a blogger. So we'll finish off with a look at some useful resources that you can check out after the session ends. And of course, we'll take your questions and we'll wrap up. So do feel free to ask your questions on the Q&A panel. We'll be monitoring throughout the session and I'll finish them off at the end there. So let's start with that big question. You know, what do I want, a blog or a website? So what's the difference? Now, this is probably getting harder to answer as the web progresses even more, because sometimes we see them very similar now. But generally, you can kind of go, a website will contain relatively static content, okay, organized by subject or something like that, and it's updated, you know, infrequently. Blogs typically have been that kind of journal style entries organized by time, where it's frequently refreshed, so kind of like that online diary style. Now, and you'll see during the end of the session too, they actually share many characteristics now as well, but that's a general guideline to get you going. And then if we have to think about, well, blogs and education, what could that look like? So there's several things that I feel blogs are really, really good for. So the first thing, if we talk about students, is that place for them to analyze, reflect and share their learning journey. So whether that be some kind of learning portfolio, whether them just be putting some reflective writing on how they found a topic or how they found an assignment or how they're, you know, coping in a particular class, it's also a place for them to get feedback. So if they publish their work on a blog, it's a really great mechanism to get feedback from their peers, the teacher, and also from other people as well. And I'm going to show you an example blog in just a moment that covers off that. In terms of teachers, so also a really great place for you as a teacher to reflect on your practice. And I've seen this used a lot in professional development courses. You know, a common thing now is for the course to actually include a blogging component where you have to reflect on your learning and how it's changing your practice in the classroom, and also getting feedback from others as well. And also, if we link back to you and your students, it's a way for you to get insight into your students' learning journey. So if they're reflecting and analysing on what they're doing, you've got insight into that. And finally, if we think of a whole school level or a whole university level, a really great place to share news, events, information. And that may be also at a class level too, so class blogs, for instance. And it's really good to help you build connections both internally within your community and also with the wider community, whether that be local or global. So I've got a quick example to show you. So I'm just going to jump out of the screen share and we'll click on the little link here. So this is just one that was done in my school in my local area. So this was a Year 10 chemistry class. And their major assessment piece was I think it was about a 1,500 word essay, which was framed as a journal article. So really giving them the idea of you are a scientist, you know, rather than just you are a student. So if we scroll down, what actually this teacher did was publish all the students' journal articles on this blog. And this has been going for 2 years now, so 4 semesters. And if we jump into one of them, the idea was this was then shared on social media, both by the school and the teacher. And we had people from around the world coming in, reading the students' work and leaving feedback. And you can see there it looks really quite professional and it's really set up so that they felt like they were being published scientists. So we might come back to that one a little bit later, but we'll jump back into this screen share. From here, our 4 steps to becoming a blogger. Okay, so obviously there's a lot more to Blogger than just the few things I'm going to show you today, but the goal of this session really is to get you started. So I want to get through these 4 steps so that you can go away this afternoon or tomorrow and get your very first blog up and running. So the first step is around creating a profile. Second step is obviously creating the blog, that's important. The third one is you're customizing your settings and the style of the blog. So the look and feel, getting your privacy right, that kind of thing. And then fourth, of course, creating the content. So, and once you've done 1, 2, and 3, all of your effort will go into 4. So what I'm going to go and do now is that the first two steps, the profile and creation of the blog, I've actually just got some pre-prepared slides so I can show you what that will look like. And then 3 and 4, we're going to jump into a blog that I've set up and we'll do some demonstration. So let's move on. So number 1, creating a blogger profile. So if this is your first time and you've never visited Blogger before, blogger.com is where you want to go. All right, once you're there, you get a lovely splash screen and there's a big orange button that says create your blog. It then prompts you again to sign in with your Google account. And once you've done that, the next important decision is confirming what type of profile you want to use. So I'm going to jump to the next slide. There are 2 types of profiles you can actually use when you get started with Blogger. So the first one is your Google Plus profile. So the second is that you can use a Blogger profile. Now, if you've already got a Google Plus profile, the screen will look much like this. So you can see what it does by default is say, we'll use your Google Plus profile. But if you don't want to do that, you can click this link, down here, and you can switch to a limited Blogger profile. Now, the key difference between the 2, as I've got on the right here, is the limited blogger profile actually lets you be anonymous because it doesn't link to your account profile in Google, whereas the Google Plus profile does. So if you're wanting to set up an anonymous blog, then you would definitely want to use the Blogger one. It also lets you blog under a different name. So even if you didn't want to be anonymous, but you wanted to perhaps have a more generic name, a class name or a school name or something like that, you would need the second one. Keep in mind you must use the same profile for all blog types. So this is a decision that you need to make that suits the types of blogs you will have in your Google account. You can change it later, so you're not sort of locked in, but yeah, just to let you know, it does cover all of them. Now, just quickly, this is the screen you'll get if you don't have a Google Plus profile. So it prompts you to actually create one or just go with Blogger. Now, obviously, if you're perhaps in a school where you want your students to create blogs on Blogger and they don't have access to Google Plus, which is very common given it's a 13 age plus product, then they would definitely need to go down the Blogger profile path. So that would be a really easy choice in that respect. So once you've done that, next step is to create your blog. So what will happen is you will, after you're creating your profile, you'll land on a big empty screen and you will see a message like the one on the left here. You are not the author of any blogs, and you can just click create new. So from this point, first step is giving it a name, okay? So if you perhaps are creating a blog for your class, you might want to, class 5M 2017 or something like that. If you want to have it a blog that would go over more, multiple years, perhaps leave out a year. So that's the first one. The second one is the address. And this is the one that sometimes trips people up because Blogger is a product that's used, by millions of people around the world. Your blog has to have a unique address. So for instance, if I just popped in Sam's blog, it would probably tell me that that address is not available. So what you generally have to do is pop in address in the address box, and then it will come up with a tick or cross and say available or not available. And sometimes you've got to be a little bit creative about how you actually pop that address in. Third step is to pick a template. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about templates later. So for this point, you can just pick one that's there. I've just gone with simple in my demo blog. And then we go down and click for create, and your blog is ready to go. Now, if you have already got a blog perhaps, or you're ready to create more after you've done one, just to let you know that when you do go to blogger.com, it will automatically open the last blog that you had that you used. And if you want to create a new one, you actually click on the little drop-down box which has the name of your blog and jump into new blog. So just to let you know that, because the interface has changed a little bit recently and there sort of used to be a bigger button for this, and I want to make sure you know where to get it. So let's jump into demo mode now. So we're going to look at customizing settings and the style of the blog. So here is a blog that I have prepared earlier. Currently, it looks like this. Very boring and plain, as you can see. I've not done anything to it whatsoever. So we're going to start from scratch with this one. So the first thing I always like to do is jump into the settings and get the privacy and the commenting setting and stuff like that out of the way. So on the Blogger dashboard, down the left here, you will see settings. And there's a couple of things I want to focus on. So I'm in the basics section, and up the top here, I've got, you see title and description, you can change them if you need to, but I've got the privacy section, and this is the first one that I want to change. So I can come into edit. Now, what you change here depends on how you want to use your blog. So the first thing is it says, let search engines find your blog down the bottom. If you want your blog to remain relatively private, you might want to set that to no. Same with add your blog to the blogger listings. If, for instance, though, it's a blog and you'd love to get lots of views and lots of comments from around the world, you know, that whole idea of providing your students with an authentic audience for their blog and getting those comments and making them feel like people are reading their work, then it would be awesome to leave these on because it will be more visible. So that's the first set, the privacy settings. Then we go further down and we're going to go to the bottom and look at permissions. So this is two things. One, who is allowed to post on your blog? So that is your blog authors. And you'll see there, I'm currently the only blog author. I could add other people if I wanted to have co-authors on my blog. So they can actually create posts, create content. The second one is the blog readers. Now you'll notice this is public by default. So again, if you don't want a public blog, if you want something that's quite private or perhaps only shared, you know, with a few people, then you could edit that and actually come down and say only particular readers or only particular authors or only authors can read it. So just be aware of that. If you do want to keep it public, but sort of have the equivalent of that anyone with the link, which is something we're used to from, say, Google Docs and Google Sites and stuff like that, you can leave it as public, but come back up to the top here and in the privacy section, turn off the visible to search engines and listed on Blogger. Because the effect of that is that people will need to know the URL to be able to access your blog. So that's a good way to keep it a little bit more close to home, but still be accessible perhaps to parents or the community, whoever you may promote it to. And of course, you can give this URL up here, even if it ends up being quite long, you could turn it into a little short, you know, bit.ly link or a goo.gl link, or create a QR code or something like that and share it with your parents and your community and the students. So now that we've done these, so I'm going to set mine to private. The main reason I also usually do that at the beginning is because when I'm building my blog, I don't want other people to find out why it doesn't look pretty and it's not finished. So I tend to set mine to private at the beginning and then go back and change it to public later. So one other section in here I want to show you is the posts, comments, and sharing. So if I jump in here, first of all, it shows you how many posts to show on the main page. So you can see there I've got at the most 7. Okay, so that's something that you can configure, and we'll look a bit more at what that looks like shortly as well. Then we hear about comment settings. So first of all, who can comment? And the default is registered user. So that means anyone that has some kind of account that has OpenID, which is, you know, something like Facebook or Google or even a Microsoft account or something like that. All of those kind of things are what we call registered, you know, users, and they can use that account to sign in and comment on your blog. So it'll just help reduce the likelihood of spam. Or if you want to, you can actually say users with Google accounts. So that could be good, for instance, if you wanted to try and restrict it even further, or only members of the blog. So that would be only people that actually had permission to view or write on the blog. So your choice. Comment moderation is a good one. So by default, it's set to never moderate comments, but I actually tend, at least in the beginning, sometimes to pop it on always, or sometimes. If you do sometimes, you can configure sort of the length of time, the age of post that you will moderate. But the reason I do that is particularly if I'm not sure the kinds of comments I might get, or I just wanted to see what's happening, what kind of things people are doing. So you might start a little bit more cautious and open it up. Or else if you're fairly confident, you can not moderate, but then come back and turn it on if you need it. And once you'll see there, it tells you who to email moderation requests to, and you'll get a little email saying, you know, someone has posted this on your blog and you can approve it or decline it. You can also send it to spam. So, you know, there is a probability of spam comments coming through. Blogger does a good job of picking them up automatically, but just something else to be aware of. And if you do have moderation on the left here under comments is where you will come in and see the posts as the comments that have been made, and you can also approve them as well there. Okay, so they're the key settings that we've gotten out of the way. Now we actually jump into the look and feel. So there's a couple of sections to do this. The first thing is over in template. Yes, I will save changes. So in template, this is where I said before I selected a simple template. So you can see there's several different color schemes and you can pick a whole lot of stuff here depending on what you want it to look like. The other option is that this button up here, backup and restore, that allows you actually, in terms of the restore part, to import templates that you've gotten from elsewhere. So there's lots and lots of great sites out there with free Blogger templates. You can literally just Google free Blogger templates and you'll find thousands. At the session resources at the end of the slide deck, I've included a link to a couple that you can have a look at as well. But the blog I showed you earlier, the chemistry one here, that is a custom template that was picked because it was really simplistic and actually looked much like what you would expect a journal to look like. So that's why that particular teacher went and got a custom template. But they're really easy to import and it's just a nice way to get a different look and feel. So other than that, we can head over here to layout. So layout is how we actually change what the blog looks like. So if I just flick back to the live view, you'll see here that there's all these different sections. So I've got an about me over here, I've got an empty section here, but you can see it's got a little spanner. The post will go in here and there's a header up here. So each of these elements actually correspond to the different sections in the layout here. So for instance, you can come up the top and change the favicon, which is a little icon that you see showing in the top of the tab. The nav bar, so that is this section here, and you can actually turn that off. It's like a blogger nav bar that just shows you signed in and lets you scroll through different blogs. But for instance, I could go into that, I could edit it, and I could say off and save it. So each one of these little gadgets has an edit link, and if you go into them, it gives you different options. So for instance, in header, I can go into that, and I can change and pop an image in. So I really like that as a way of customizing the blog. And I've given you a link in the resources to a great website where you can create just cool little text headers. The kids love to do it if they're building their own blogs, and you can import them in here. And even if it's just got your name and it's in a cool fancy font with some bright colors, it looks good. So then further down, we've got other ones here. So if you want to add more gadgets, you can. One thing I will point out is in the main section under blog posts, I can click edit, and in here I can configure the type of number of posts and also the date style and stuff like that. So it's really good to go into the edit section of the main post because that's where you change all of those options. But as I did say though, you can add a gadget, and there's just one I want to show you. So if I click on add a gadget, you will see here there's a whole lot of different ones you can add, and they add different elements to your blog, for instance, an archive, etc. The one I want to point out is pages. And what that does is it says displays a list of standalone pages. It actually gives you like a navigation bar like you would see on a traditional website. So that one's really good to add if you're going to have standalone pages in your site, and I'll talk about them more in a moment. To give you an idea, back to our blog over here, this at the top is that nav bar. So you see I've got a home and about on it. So that's that pages gadget up there. Okay, so that is a few tips for styling your blog. So you can definitely do a lot in here in terms of the layout. So from this point, we're going to actually talk about, well, how do you create content on this thing? And then we'll jump into questions. So I'll just click Save Arrangement to save my changes. Now the first thing, and I'm just quickly going to flick back to my presentation for you, just to tell you, in terms of remembering all this stuff, I have done slides to show you the stuff I've just been through, so you'll be able to come back and have a look at that. But what I do want to talk about is pages versus posts. So in Blogger, we can have both pages and posts. So pages are actually kind of like what we would have had on a traditional website. They're a spot for relatively static or consistent content. So for instance, an about page or a contact page, and I've just shown you the about page on that, that chemistry blog that we were just looking at. Now, posts are for the rest of your blog content. So, you know, your updates, posting your work, posting your reflections, your news, all of that is what you use posts for. So pages you usually set up at the beginning, and posts you continually add over the lifespan of your blog. On that note, if we go back, you'll see here we've got pages and we've got posts. So if I jump quickly into pages, I would simply come in here and say new page. And once I've created one, they'll be listed. And I'm not going to actually show you the editor for the page because it's exactly the same as the one we look at in posts. But I just want to point out that you can do it in here. So if I now jump up the top to posts, you'll see I have a big orange button, new post. So let's go there and we're going to start a welcome post. So up the top, I've got post title and I can pop welcome. And then it looks much like perhaps a Google Doc would, okay? Big empty canvas for you to write on. You've got fonts, you've got different fonts here, so all your standard web fonts, you've got sizes, you've got heading styles, and all of the different look and feel of these, for instance, the heading styles and the default fonts comes from the template that you've chosen to use on your blog. Bold, italic, all of the normal stuff you're used to. You can add hyperlinks here to different websites or perhaps off to any other content that you want. Images we can insert here and you can embed them amongst the content. We've also got video. So video can come from YouTube or from some other URL. Images can be imported or grabbed out of your Google Plus Photos if you've got it. And then we've got other kinds of formatting here, bullet points, etc. So I'm just going to do a quick heading. So this is my first post. Oops. For checking out my blog. Now, just for those of you that are a little bit more advanced in website creation or that kind of thing, you'll notice too you've got a HTML button. So that actually lets you jump into the HTML code that's sitting behind that post. So if you want to fine tune some, image embedding or something like that, or the look and feel of a table or something, you can actually jump into the HTML and do it there. Now on the right, we've got the posts settings. So first of all, we've got labels. Now labels are a way of tagging and categorizing a post. So for instance, I might create a label on this one called MISC. Now if you want to create a new label, you just actually type in the name. If you wanted multiple labels, you put a comma, and I might, for instance, put demo and click done. So that will actually attach that label to my post. And if I get in the habit of assigning the same labels to the similar kinds of posts, then someone will read one of my posts and go, oh, great, that was about Blogger. So I'll click on the Blogger label and I'll view all your other posts about Blogger. So it's a good way to encourage people to dig deep into your blog. Particularly if, for instance, you've got a class blog, you might have different labels for different activities or different subjects, perhaps if you're in primary school, and then the parents, if they were looking at the blog, they can dig deeper and look into things they're interested in. You can also schedule posts, and I strongly recommend this. It's a really good idea, even if you only set the date and time, say 10 minutes in advance. The reason I like it is because if you've put on a scheduled date and time, you can go back and update that post at any time, and it actually keeps the original date and time. You can also backdate posts. So if you've gotten a little bit behind in your blogging, you can kind of put a few weeks behind as well, if you wanted to spread them out. And down in options here, you can also turn off comments on specific posts. So if you're posting something that's particularly a little bit sensitive or controversial and you want to keep comments off, you can do that there. But I'm going to publish my post up here, the big orange publish button, and jump in. And if we go and now have a look and view the blog, you will see my first post pops up. Welcome, this is my post. And I can click on it, and it will actually take me into a specific page just for that post, and you can see we can do the comments and that there as well. Okay, so that is posting. Now there's one little last tip I'm going to show you in here, and then we're going to jump onto the questions. So this is one that's dig deep in the settings, and it's particularly good for those of you with younger students. So if I go down into settings here and I pop down to email, I can actually turn on posting using email. And that allows me to set up a secret word, which creates an email address. And I can give that email address to my students, and they can simply send an email to that address without having to have any access to publish on my blog, and it will create a blog post. Now I can either choose to publish that post immediately or save it as a draft. I too prefer to save them as a draft because I just check that the formatting and everything's good, and then I publish them. So really good for those with you in primary schools, or those of you with perhaps a class blog and you don't want people just all on there as editors. Also good for yourself if you're on the train and you're blogging and you want to send an email off to your blog to look at later. So that's Blogger. So let's jump back here and we will go back to our presentation, and we will have 5 minutes for questions. Before I jump into them though, I'll just quickly show you the useful resources. So the Blogger Help Centre I've got there. Now I've got out, check out Kathy Cassidy's blog. It's really quite good. She's got a story about the class blog she runs, and she's got a post on what she justifies, why I think she's got 6-year-olds, why they've got their own blog. And it's really an interesting read. Some options there for connecting your students' blogs with an authentic audience. So ways to get comments on the kids' blogs, which is really great for them to feel that their content's being valued wider. And also some ideas for styling your blogs as well. So let's jump back in and have a look at the questions for the last time. So we've got some that, can you create subpages? That is a good question. You can, so that was asked by Rachel. So you can create subpages in the terms of the menu structure. So in Blogger, the pages are all sort of just on a single layer, if you like, but depending on the template you get, you are actually, generally you have to dig in a little bit to the HTML, but you can actually create a navigation menu that gives the illusion of subpages. So that kind of idea of a drop-down list, you can do that. So that's definitely one worth looking into a bit more Googling, but it's definitely possible, just takes a little bit of creativity with the template. What do you mean that your blogger name will cover all those types of blogs? So this was right at the beginning. So the blogger profile, so we went back all the way to the start. So if you decide to use your Google Plus profile for in Blogger, then every blog you create will be linked to your Google Plus profile. So for instance, the About Me on your blog will show you on every other. If you go for a blogger profile, then you can actually have an anonymous name. So that would still apply to every blog you create in that account. You can't choose to have some with a Google Plus profile and some with a blogger profile. You have to pick one and stick for it for all of the actual blogs in your account. To what extent your blog post will have to consider the privacy of your pupils? That is a fantastic question. Now, given that we're broadcasting worldwide, I'm only going to speak generally because every different country has different laws. But as a general rule, it is always advisable, if not required by law, that you get permission from parents for anything that you would post that actually identifies a student. So what you may prefer to do is actually post work anonymously, and you will have noticed in that blog that I showed you earlier, and I'll just flick back to it, the students on here are all anonymous. So the teacher has posted them with their name, and the students is only got their first name and an initial mentioned. So that means the student is not directly identifiable. Also, in terms of images, is something to keep in mind. So if you're posting student images, you need to generally make sure you've got permission, but just check with your school and your local legislation as well. Is there a chance that your blog can get deleted? If so, how can we save our posts? Your blog would get deleted if your Google account was deleted. So that's an excellent question, particularly if you're using a G Suite account at school and there is a chance that it could be deleted. So I showed you earlier when we were in the template section, there was a backup restore button. So you can actually use the backup button to export your posts. It comes out as an XML file, which would then need to generally be imported somewhere else to be able to be read, but you can get the content out like that as well. I tend to also, when I'm blogging, is I actually draft my post in a Google Doc first and then I could copy and paste the content in the Blogger. So I've actually got a whole folder full of blog posts if I ever want to use them in the future. I'm just checking. What is the address when a new blog is to be created? So that's what you pick at the beginning. I'll just jump back in. When you create your blog, you pick the address. So you can see up here, this one I gave EduOnAir Demo 2016.blogspot.com.au. Now, if you've got your own domain, so for instance, yourschool.com.au or yourname.com.au or .com, you actually can apply that to the blog. And there's some other settings to do that. So I'm not going to cover that here, but you can add a custom domain name to your blog. And with some of these have got answered already, so I'm probably covering off some other information. So we're just about to finish up. So I think we are good. How about blog with AMP? That's important. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I'm sorry. So I'm going to skip that. So let's finish up there. I'll just go back to presenting. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that's useful. Feel free to get in touch with me if you want any more info or you're looking for professional development. I'd love to come and visit you. But thanks so much, and be sure to check out the session resources to get all my slides and the information. So enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone. See you later.